Your whole life you've heard curiosity killed the cat. But I have to tell you, that's a false statement. Lack of curiosity can really lead you to an unfilled, unhappy, and unhealthy life.
You know, we all have choices. We make choices every single day. And it's these choices that we make that decide how we're going to live our life. Now, we've entered retirement and we have 40 plus hours of new free time that comes our way. How are you going to fill that time?
Well, a recent survey said that the average number of hours people are watching TV each week today is 38 hours. That is a super sedentary lifestyle, and it can lead to an early death. I mean, no judgment.
No, it's not.
But it's a tough way to go.
And listen, we watch a little bit of TV, and TV's fine.
You're not even good at TV.
I'm not good at TV. But listen, 30, 40 hours of TV a week, there's got to be a better way to live this phase of your life.
And really, sparking curiosity is that way.
You know, there's 4 reasons we're going to give you today why having a curious mind is going to benefit you in the long run. And then at the end of the video, we're going to share with you our 5-step process to kickstart having a curious mindset.
Now, during your career, if you were like us, you were always curious and always learning, always trying to do better.
Yeah.
I was always curious about leadership, employee engagement, what was working, how to be flexible.
Yeah, these are the books that we read. We both read hundreds of books during our career. I read books. I was a sales guy. I owned my own business. I read so many books on sales and business acumen. It was like a sponge because it helped with our career.
And then during our semi-retired summer of 2018, we took a break from learning and curiosity as we were winding down our roles.
Yeah, because it really wasn't, that summer was great when we think back about it. But there really wasn't learning needed anymore for our careers because they were ending.
We took to air and we traveled.
We did.
We went to some great locations. You know, we went to Florence and London and Lisbon and Barcelona, and that was really different than the travel we had done during our career, which was a 2-week break, and we just wanted to relax.
And you know, that was what we wanted that summer. You know, we wanted to go away. We were going to visit one of your daughters in Florence for a week.
Which was magical.
It was magical, but we thought we'd go there, we'd have wine at lunch every day and at dinner and
Lots
go
of
to
pasta.
the vineyards and eat really well, which we did. But our travel agent pushed us. And she pushed us. She wanted us to take a walking tour of Florence.
Now, hang on a second. She wanted us to take a walking tour of Florence after we had been in Florence for 2 solid days already. And if you know Mark at all, we were already walking the city every minute of the day. And you were really against it.
I was against it from the beginning.
You were.
You booked it anyway.
I
was against it. Listen, I've been to cities before. And like Jody said, my vacation time, I was just so used to it. I want to do what I want to do.
Right.
And I don't want someone walking me around a city telling me things that I don't really care about.
But as silly as it may sound, this experience, this walking tour of Florence with an expert was really a mindset shift for us. It was a big change for us.
It was huge.
And it sparked our curiosity.
It did. We got the history of the Duomo, the Medici brothers. And when we came back we were learning while we were there. When we came back, we dove big time into books and we watched.
We did watch a Netflix series.
Show on the Medici brothers. It was fabulous. It was just.
And it was interesting because we thought we knew so much about history, right? So we were never really curious about it. And you were actually never really good at history. That wasn't like your forte.
No, I hated history.
Right.
And it was the worst subject that I ever studied in high school and college. I really just didn't like it. But I probably spent hours that first day researching the Duomo. And I can't really remember, but I think it took
the architecture.
Well, I think it took 4 generations of
Italians
to build that place. It's amazing when you look at it. 4 generations. So the people that started it never saw it completed. Right. And even the dome wasn't put up till the very end. But all of this history, before this walking tour, for me, it was a cool piece of architecture. It was green and white. It was huge. I thought, well, that's cool. But then, and then the Medici brothers was exciting. So to your point, this sparked interest of learning.
And what I was getting at, though, is...
I didn't let you get at it?
No.
Okay, interrupted you.
Rarely do.
Okay.
But what I was getting at was we learned not only about the architecture and the Duomo and Brunelleschi and the Medicis, but we learned about money and how it followed the church during that time, and about the different popes. And I mean, it just grew and grew, as did our curiosity.
So this shift,
it was a real pivot.
It was a shift of vacations, just sitting back, relaxing, and taking it easy, has shifted for us now. And we saw 3 more cities. We saw
did.
London,
Lisbon.
We saw Lisbon, and Barcelona, and we took the same approach, and it was amazing. We really did. So let's talk about the 4 benefits of having a curious mind. The first one has to do with your brain. There's new science, new studies going on that talk about the fact that your brain is like a muscle and it can regenerate yourself. The very outer part of your brain is called the cortex, and it's made up of billions of nerve cells that are called neurons.
And what's interesting is they communicate with each other when they're challenged, right? So you might have heard, or you might have seen some people saying, I need to do Sudoku, I need to do crossword puzzles, I'm doing math, as they're getting older. And a result of that challenge of those neurons is you can actually strengthen and regenerate those neurons as you age.
So this is really, really important, because the science used to be, or the thinking used to be, that as you get older you start to lose your memory, which you do, you forget things, which you do, but you can actually reverse. I don't know if you can reverse your memory, but you certainly can reverse the shrinking of your brain. It's the breakdown of your brain. It's like when you go to the gym and you work your muscles. Your brain is a muscle, and you can exercise it by challenging yourself with some really good thinking.
The second thing is you can really expand your knowledge about things you care about.
Right.
Mark spends a lot of time now in this new business, researching about retirement.
Well, you do too.
I don't do as much as you do. I'm more on the factual, psychological studies of what's happening.
You sound like you're so smart.
I'll just leave that.
Leave it. But I do spend time on this business, and I enjoy it, and I'm passionate about it. But this reverse for me, and it probably was the trip to Italy, I am now such a history nut. I'm reading the greatest book right now by, who's it? It's
about Churchill.
It's about Churchill, his time as prime minister during the war, and it's got the pages from his diary. It's a story, and it's a big book, but oh my gosh, I'm so into it.
You are.
As some pleasurable reading. But
sometimes I come down in the morning when Mark's quote unquote reading his papers.
Yeah.
He's not reading his papers.
He's
reading the book.
Yeah.
So I'll say anything in the news, and he'll have to flip around to the Times.
But
to figure it
I'm
out.
expanding knowledge on something I care about, and you did this positive psychology course.
I did. I went down to the University of Pennsylvania and got really, really deep into positive psychology and really loved the learning there. And I've also been working on the mindfulness side of learning. And quite honestly, this business, this whole social media platform, whether it's YouTube or
doing
all
the videos
others,
and all of that,
that's
hard.
a big learning curve for me. So I feel like I'm pretty stretched. In fact, sometimes I say to you, I'm really stretched.
Well, but it is allowing us. We're learning the business, but also expanding some things that we want to learn about on our own.
Yep.
Now, the third thing that it helps with, it can improve your relationships. It can improve your relationships with your spouse and partner, your friends, or your children. And for us, you and I we've been married 12 years.
Right.
But by asking questions, being thoughtful, really caring, we're actually learning more about each other every day. And the fact that we do change, over time as we get older.
And you've heard us actually mention this in maybe some of the relationships videos that you've seen, but you have those friends that you go out to lunch with and they ask you 1,000 questions. You may know them for 10 years, but they still ask questions and they're still interested and they're still curious about what's happening. We find that we do that with each other now more than ever, I think.
Yeah.
Now that we have more time.
We do, and we do it with friends. If you really want to strengthen your relationship with your friends, ask them really interesting questions. Ask about their family.
Right.
Ask, what is the word? The appreciative inquiry. Isn't that right?
That is right.
Yeah, just really appreciate their answer. Ask another question, another question.
Yeah.
We get frustrated sometimes when we go out with people and they don't ask us anything. Nothing.
It happens.
It happens.
It happens.
And the same thing with your kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're great with the children, all
Yeah.
6, the
I
boys and the
love
girls.
to ask questions, and sometimes if I put Mark in charge of something with the kids, he comes back and I'll ask him 10 questions, and he'll say, I didn't ask any of those.
I don't.
Yeah, but you should.
I should. You ask questions about their relationships, their careers, their dreams. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the fourth benefit of having a curious mind is that curious people are happier. Jody and I talk a lot about me being a grumpy old man. Well, I'm not a grumpy old man, but we don't want me to be a grumpy old man.
Right.
And I think
when you get in those grumpy old man moods, we call it.
I've never been in that mood ever. But my dad was a grumpy old man.
He was.
And it was because he wasn't learning. He wasn't curious. He just sat around and watched TV. I'm not going to be that person.
Well, the fact is, you get higher levels of positive emotions when you're curious.
That's right, because you're doing all of this learning,
Right.
You're being creative, you're thinking, and it also lowers your levels of anxiety.
Yeah.
Because you're not sitting there all alone trying to figure things out. You're talking to people, you're asking questions, you're being curious.
Studies
even curious about why you're anxious.
Yeah, that's true. Studies actually show that there's more life satisfaction with the more curious you are. And I think that's really interesting.
And we are really taking curiosity to a whole new level. We show these aura rings all the time, and it's a sleep ring, and it keeps track of our activity and all of that. But the first thing we do every morning is, what were your sleep numbers? What was your recovery score?
It's almost a competition.
Well, but it has to do with, what did we eat yesterday? What time did we eat last night? How much exercise did we get yesterday? Because having a lot of sleep is important to us, but we're curious about it. So anyway,
so let's get to the 5-step process that we've used to become more curious.
Right. And the first thing is, you got to have an open mind. If your mind is closed and you're not willing to learn, then you're going to have a problem. You got to challenge yourself. If you think about it, are you really watching TV all day and not interested in anything around you? With this book we're reading now,
Think Again.
Think Again.
Yeah.
The Power of What You Don't Know by Adam Grant. We'll drop that in the comments below. It's an amazing read. It talks about actually forcing yourself to be wrong. It just said,
and embracing that.
I don't know, and embrace it. It's a whole new way to live. So having an open mind is important.
Yeah.
And the second step, I love this one.
Another one is, go visit a store, a bookstore, a library. Spend some time getting lost in different things that pique your interest, whether it's, cooking or history or biographies or, latest trends on the internet. If you find a section and grab a few books and get lost a little bit, you'd be shocked at how that piques your curiosity.
Yeah, this is really important, and we really suggest you do it. And this is different than going on Amazon and looking through the most popular books. Spend time in a bookstore. Spend an hour this week, an hour next week, an hour the third week. You'll be amazed at what you come home with.
Right, definitely.
And from that research, the third step, start a hobby. It could be gardening. It could be
cooking.
You're basket weaving, aren't you?
I am not basket weaving, but
you always said you wanted to. But our hobby for us, one of them that we do together, is boating. And boating, you don't just get on the boat, start it up, and go like you do in a car. there's a lot of checks you have to do, and there's the online.
It's a huge learning curve for me because I didn't grow up boating. So
Yeah.
I'm always a little behind the curve trying to learn. And
Docking
Mark will
is a
do
problem.
these knots, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I just tie the regular old knot.
But that's our hobby, and
Yeah.
we do it together, and it's helpful.
The fourth thing is maybe create a study group or a book club. As many of you know, in our Facebook group, we have a book club, and that's been really fun and challenging for us as we read a book that we want to share and we dig deep into the conversation and thinking around it with friends.
Right. And the fifth step, volunteer. You know, it's such a great way to get out
amazing.
and meet people, to lend a hand, and to learn from their experiences. You know, if you're helping seniors, you get the opportunity to learn from their wisdom. If you're helping kids, you get to laugh a little bit because they're silly. Now, we hope you enjoyed this. We want you to share it with your friends, and please subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below.
And finally, join our free Facebook community. There's a link in the notes below as well.
Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to being back with you again soon.